Some legends are told, some turn to dust or to gold, but you will remember me for centuries.
This is The Cameron Parker Show, brought to you by Spreaker, where we discuss everything from around the local professional sports scene in Colorado, such as the Denver Broncos.
Chris Harris comes out. I don't know if he was on the drive, but he said, I knew 15 seconds into that game that I should have been on T.Y. Hilton. If players are coming out and saying that, it falls again on the coaching staff.
Not to mention insiders from around your local sports scene. Ryan Spilborgs, former outfielder for your Colorado Rockies.
It's not going to be the 25 guys that leave spring training that are going to be the only guys the entire season. You need depth. You need guys that are going to be in your minor leagues that you may not expect.
Ryan Edwards.
When you're talking about an offensive line, it's about the five best guys, right? And you're talking about the five best guys gelling. There hasn't been a lot of time for that.
It's showtime. Are you ready? Fantasy football focus segment with CJ Cranock. And CJ, how you doing, my man?
Good, man. Always good to be on the show.
How was your weekend? How was the obviously it is your wife's birthday. Was your happy birthday?
Yeah. She doesn't watch the show or listen to the podcast, but if you're listening, babe, happy birthday. I'm sorry that I'm not with you right now. I love you. But yeah, as far as my weekend goes, I would have to say that it was a rough one. I love the Packers. I'm from Colorado. I love the Broncos. And neither one of them showed up this week. So I've seen better days.
It was pretty pathetic, and I hate to put it, so bluntly, but it was pretty pathetic. I mean, from really start to finish for both the Denver Broncos and for the Green Bay Packers. I mean, it was pretty pathetic.
Yeah, I think that you're seeing two teams with similar problems. You're talking about bad quarterback play, the Green Bay Packers obviously losing Aaron Rodgers, the Denver Broncos not being able to figure out what's going on with their quarterback situation, and we're seeing what kind of toll that will take on teams. And it's the same thing for the Broncos and the Packers. It's really kind of sad to watch.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and get to the fantasy perspective, the fantasy football focus, the Release the Cranock section of the fantasy football world. What are some of the things that we can look forward to as far as some waiver wire pickups?
Right. Today is Tuesday, and Tuesday is waiver wire day. You got to get your waiver wire in before tomorrow. And so I'm going to talk about a couple players here that are owned in less than 50% of leagues. That's the requirement to make it onto this waiver wire ad list. Less than 50% of leagues you have to be owned in. And there's some surprising names on here we're going to talk about. And just to start it off, I'll get going. Jared Goff. How in the world is Jared Goff owned in less than 50% of fantasy leagues? Kim, why?
I mean, he's, like I've said, it isn't just fantasy, but he's an under-the-radar MVP candidate. He's blossoming with Sean McVay as his head coach. I mean, he's an offensive mind. I thought he was Josh McDaniels 2.0. Clearly, that's not the case right now. he's definitely playing exceptionally well, and to make even matters comfortable for him, he has a pretty good receiver on the other side.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp we talked about him last Thursday, a lot. And after another week of play, after seeing them come off the bye week, I am still sold on Cooper Kupp. He was tied for the team lead in targets again. He is the team leader in red zone targets, but he didn't have one of Jared Goff's 4 touchdown passes. If that's a trend that's going to continue for Jared Goff, then Cooper Kupp is going to be catching those touchdown passes. You don't lead the NFL in red zone targets and not get in the end zone. And Cooper Kupp we're just biding time before he has an explosion of a week, and he's the most added person in fantasy. Jared Goff and Cooper Kupp need to be rostered in 100% leagues. And, talking about Jared Goff, in a dynasty league that I'm in last year, somehow, some way, I landed Carson Wentz and Jared Goff in the same draft. And after a couple games of watching Jared Goff play, I said, no way. I don't want any part of this guy. He's awful. What a bust. And I traded him for who was injured at the time, Teddy Bridgewater. And knowing that he might never play again, that's how far down I was on Jared Goff. So if I'm sitting here telling you Jared Goff is legit, that is me really having to humble myself, because I traded him for torn ACL, torn everything. Jared Goff and this new offense that he's in is legit. Cooper Kupp is legit. He's the go-to guy in the red zone. Get him on your team now before you're losing to them in the fantasy playoffs.
Well, and so certainly the marriage certainly of the Philadelphia Eagles and the quarterback situation going into year 2, it looks pretty good. And you want to talk about me being an idiot, or me being completely smart heading into the game. I have both Cam Newton and Carson Wentz on my fantasy in one of the leagues that I'm in. And very smartly before the game, I said, you know what? I will decide not to play Carson Wentz against the Denver Broncos. And then, sure enough, 51-23, or should I say it was about identical to the 62-36 drubbing between Nebraska and CU, as I well know, considering how much it damaged my Thanksgiving.
I think, it was. I don't know if anyone saw that coming from Carson Wentz. I don't think anybody thought he'd have a bad game, but I don't think we thought that he would do as well as he did. And, I was a little bit low on him. I think I had him as quarterback 7, which is still, if you have him, you're starting him territory. But I didn't think that he was going to put up the week that he had. And, maybe that's a news flash for me. And he's my favorite player in the league right now. And there's not a lot that he has to do to convince me to be quarterback 1 every week, but every week he's going out and he's convincing me even more. So he's going to be higher up on my rankings. But Jared Goff, he's going to be up there too. He's going to be a top 10 play for me against Houston, who we saw what happens when you have poor quarterback play again with Houston. Tom Savage was awful, and we're going to see them get beat down over and over again, I think, the rest of this year. And Jared Goff is going to start that again next week. And so get him and Cooper Kupp in there. I want to talk about a couple other guys here real quick, Cameron. And first is Rod Smith. So with
you mean Denver Broncos Rod Smith?
No, definitely not. Although he'd be a great add too. Stash him. But Rod Smith from the Cowboys. And with Ezekiel Elliott's suspension looming, we know that there's somebody going to have to come in and step it up and fill his shoes. And we saw what the depth chart was going to look like early this week before Ezekiel Elliott ended up playing again, and he gets his sentence moved another week. And Rod Smith was number 2 on the depth chart, not Darren McFadden. But Darren McFadden is owned in 50% of leagues, and Rod Smith is owned in 9%. So if you're that high on Darren McFadden, then you need to drop him and add Rod Smith, because Rod Smith's the number 2 guy in that offense. He's gained their trust. He's shown what he can do in the passing game. If you're in PPR, I add him definitely. He's re-rostered in 100% of PPR leagues. But I would look at him as a waiver wire add this week.
What about guys like Robbie Anderson? I know you've been talking a lot about him. Robbie Anderson, Terrence Williams. Obviously, Terrence Williams had a massive game against his opponent last week. But yeah, so what about those guys? Obviously, you've been talking about Robbie Anderson. What about guys like Terrence Williams?
Okay, so guys like Terrence Williams, I mean, I expect an uptick in usage for Terrence Williams as Dak continues to throw the ball. And I think that they'll kind of stray away from the running game, mostly because I think Dak has proved this year that he is the quarterback that we saw last year, and they're going to trust him more with a Zeke out. And so Terrence Williams is a guy that is an okay waiver wire add this week, but if I'm going to add a wide receiver this week, I'm looking, other than Cooper Kupp, I'm looking at Corey Davis. You know, we talked a couple of weeks ago about rookies that were disappointing, and I'm surprised neither one of us brought him up because he hasn't done anything.
He's dealt with injuries. He certainly dealt with injuries over his time this year. Kind of like Demaryius Thomas. You know, if you're looking at, I'm obviously not saying that he's going to end up being that type of career, you know, because Demaryius is here. But as far as what Demaryius had early in his career, he had a career that was bumps and bruises, and I think his first season and a half was full of really, really bad injuries. So that might have a lot to do with it.
I think that's a great comparison. I think Corey Davis is a lot like him. And Corey Davis is a guy that can take over games. The Titans are trending in the right direction. Marcus Mariota, I think, is finally getting healthy. And Corey Davis is the number one guy in that offense. He's not rostered in 50% of leagues. He's far less than that. Actually, he's sitting at 32.5% right now. So he's probably available in your league. And I think that's the guy that you want to grab now. Like we were talking about with Cooper Kupp earlier, grab him now before he has that big game. Otherwise, you're going to be losing to him in the fantasy playoffs. Even if you don't have a starting slot open, stash him on your bench, and if he goes off, you can trade him. He's worth adding.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask the fellas if they want to chime in and maybe ask a few questions here. And see what if they have any fantasy questions on their mind, and see if maybe we can. Looks like we got one right now. Looks like Brooks is on the line.
Yeah, why is Cooper Kupp not available in both leagues I'm in with CJ?
I wonder. It's almost as if people are listening to me. or I have him.
More than likely you have him.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp, man. Also, Corey Davis isn't available either.
It's kind of being stonewalled.
That's pretty much what I do. I mean, I think this year give you a rough estimate, I'm like probably 24-6 in my teams. I'm good at grabbing guys before people notice, and so before they make it big, because by the time they hit these ESPN columns where they're saying must adds, you know, everybody's grabbing them that week, and you got to try to get them the week before that. So I think that's some good advice that you can get from this show.
So I do have some questions, I guess, and one would, what about, you know, guys like, you know, Aaron Jones? We've been talking him up, you know, talking about potentially the impact that he could have in a backfield. Is he a one-hit wonder? Is he still a one-hit wonder? I mean, because they're going to need a running game to help support Brett Hundley.
Yeah, I think if they're going to do anything with Brett Hundley, they're going to have to try to run some more zone read and open it up with his legs, because his arm is not getting it done. If you watch the game Sunday night, he's just... I thought he was going to be good, and I came on the show and I said he was going to be good, and I'm taking it back. He's not going to be. I also don't think Mike McCarthy's doing him any favors with the play calls. They didn't start throwing the ball down the field till late in the second half when they were already down, and it's just, I don't think that's going to work for him. So they're going to have to open it up with the run game. So I kind of like Aaron Jones, but at the same time, you don't have to do much to stop Hundley, so they're going to be stacking the box, trying to stop the run. And I think that Aaron Jones is maybe around like 15 this year, which is not that bad, but it's definitely not great either.
Brooks, do you have any questions? Aside from that,
I don't.
oh, you don't. So your fantasy team is all perfect. It's it's doing quite well.
I broke my 4-game losing streak, so yeah.
I would say I think Brooks having a rough year in our dynasty league, but that just means a higher pick for next year.
Hey, I'm 5-4. I'm happy.
He's having a rough
That's
year.
not bad. You were 5-0.
I was 4-0, and then I put in our group meet, hey guys, I'm the last undefeated. Next thing you know, I'm 4-4.
Jinx himself.
Hey, Brooks, just so you know, you think you're having a bad year? Go look at my quarterbacks in our fantasy league.
Oh, jeez. Just don't. It's not even worth it. There's none.
Yeah. Grandma, there's no quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Since we have the core together, the MLB Awards were just
total and utter bullcrap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Let's. We got to talk about it. The AL Awards were they weren't awarded, yet. But as far as the nominees and the AL, I would say that they got them right, as far as mostly on the AL side.
Yes, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
But
Altuve's gonna win anyway. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
it's impossible for a rookie player as dominant as far as the home runs that he hit and everything like that. It is very, very hard for a baseball player like Aaron Judge to come in and win it his rookie year. I mean, unless he was hitting, I don't know, a little bit over 300 and he actually had 50 home runs, that would be the only way that I would ever see a rookie like that completely dominate a Major League Baseball scene.
Yeah, if Judge didn't set, the strikeout record and slump for a month, then he probably would have had a shot. But it's Altuve's, and after they won the World Series, it's not even a contest.
But
on
see,
that
that's
side,
the thing, though, is their voting happens before the season. Before the season ends, I should say. Isn't it? I mean, does their voting happen before or once the season ends? They've already calculated all the votes and everything like that. It has nothing to do with postseason.
I mean, you think.
Yeah.
I really don't know. We need to look that up for next time.
But might as well get into it. The National League side.
Garbage.
It's stupid. It is stupid. When you think of the year that Blackman had, and especially Nolan Arenado had, and for them to, and personally, just the bias that I have towards Paul Goldschmidt, if this is the year that Paul Goldschmidt should win MVP, this is the year he should win MVP. But he's going up against two guys. One is probably going to win by a landslide, and it's like they wanted to intentionally create a landslide scenario so that Giancarlo Stanton could win his MVP award. But it's stupid because, is he a worthy MVP candidate? Absolutely. But again, much like Joey Votto, and look, Joey Votto's a terrific player. It's like splitting hairs when you want to talk about who's the best player in the majors. But again, Joey Votto and the Cincinnati Reds were one of the worst teams in baseball. And you put him up in the MVP discussion, knowing the year that Charlie Blackmon had, knowing the year that Nolan Arenado had. It's just, if you thought, I'm kind of rambling, but if you thought that there were no bias against the Colorado Rockies, you have blindfolders on in understanding that the amount of impact that both those guys, Charlie Blackmon and Nolan Arenado, had on their teams this year.
Absolutely. Huge impacts.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brooks, you talk about it first. Go for it, dude. What makes you mad?
I get that there's the Coors Field effect. Yeah, we all know that it's there.
It's been
But
pretty well noted.
you're telling me, minus Giancarlo, Giancarlo's just, he has so much stupid power, it's ridiculous. He can hit the ball out anywhere, any ballpark. It doesn't even matter if it's 500 feet, he'll probably still hit it out. It's like Paul Goldschmidt plays in Arizona, big time hitters ballpark.
Mhm.
Joey Votto plays in Great American, another big time hitters ballpark. You got Jose Altuve, big time hitters ballpark. You got Aaron Judge, which it's just stupid how small of a field Yankee Stadium is.
Well, right field in general.
Yeah, I mean the dude's hitting one row home runs like it's nothing there. Like, don't get me wrong, he's really good and everything, but like I think he had at least 10 home runs that just went barely into the first row.
And that was him using a wiffle ball bat.
Yeah.
Okay, I got some stats I want to throw at you just to show how unbelievably unfair this is. So let's just throw this one out. Arenado had 30 RBIs more than Joey Votto. 30. I mean, I don't even know what else to say. You drive in 30 more runs than the other guy. I don't understand. Joey Votto's on-base percentage was better. I will give him that by quite a bit, actually. But when you're driving in 30 more runs than a guy, I mean, you contributed 30 more runs to your team. That's the way I see it, and I don't understand. I don't understand how that didn't at least get him into the final three.
Oh yeah.
Well then let me ask this, because it's a really difficult discussion, and that is, who deserved to be in that final three? Was it Charlie Blackmon or was it Nolan Arenado?
You know, Brooks, what do you think?
I want to go Charlie Blackmon. Just because of the way he was a leadoff hitter this year. He wasn't a normal leadoff at all.
Yeah, I think you have to talk about that too. I mean, Charlie Blackmon had more RBIs than Joey Votto from the leadoff spot.
Yeah.
And he had more home runs and 3 times the stolen bases, better batting average. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it, how is Charlie Blackmon not in those? You know, I think if the top 3 for me is probably Giancarlo, Goldschmidt, Blackmon.
Yeah.
Well,
I like that.
Well, and so here's one. You could go right with either one of them if you wanted to do Goldschmidt, Arenado, and Stanton. And frankly, though, the thing is, there's a lot of crap being thrown in. I just don't understand as far as the narrative being thrown around as far as home road splits. Look, I get it. Charlie Blackmon's road and home splits were about 100. But did you see what those exact splits were? I mean, me and Brooks were talking about it, I believe it was on Friday. But anyway, I mean, sure, is Charlie Blackmon batting a ridiculous 370, 380, or 390 at home? Absolutely. But
what's wrong with that?
Right. But then you look at the road, and he's batting, like 270, 280? Again, what's wrong with that? You ask a lot of hitters that want to hit in their away ballpark, they would kill to bat 280 consistently, because it's going to help out their batting average, knowing that they're going to hit well at home. So...
Yeah, I bet you if you ask some people, you said, if I let you hit 380 at home, what would you be okay with hitting on the road? I bet you people would say 100. You know, if they can, it's not a bad thing that he hit 380 at home.
No.
You know, the Coors Field effect doesn't affect base hits.
No, it affects the doubles and triples.
That.
Yeah, it affects the doubles and the triples, and the guy had 100 RBIs from the leadoff spot, the first time in Major League history. Charlie Blackmon, sure, was George Springer. See, and that's the other part for me, and this is kind of a different tangent for people that say that George Springer is the best leadoff hitter in the game. I disagree. I 125% disagree.
Yeah, they're just saying that because they just watched Parker on Instagram, right?
At Cameron Parker 22, I believe. But
check him out, make fun of him.
you can also either Facebook stalk me if you want. But yeah, no, and see, that's the thing, is that I just don't understand. Because, I mean, there were people literally comparing the leadoff hitter of Charlie Blackmon to the leadoff hitter of Mike Trout. How hard is that to ignore? I mean, I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
It's just the Rockies bias. And, I'm going to sit here and I'll tell you, I'm one of the biggest Rocky haters of all time.
Yeah, you are.
Consistently.
You and I get in a lot of heated...
I hate, except for Charlie Blackmon, Nolan Arenado, and their production. They are good players that don't get enough attention because everyone writes it off as Colorado. It's the Colorado error. And let's face it, the Rockies don't make the playoffs very often, so they don't get a lot of attention there. And, that's not fair to them. It's not. And, I hope that they don't, at the end of their contracts, one day try to go find somewhere else to play because of that. Because, that's also not fair to the people of Colorado.
You guys can chime in on this as an underrated point as far as another reason why I'm so pissed off and annoyed at the voting committee for their awards finalists. Bud Black was manager of the year. How in Sam hell, to use that, can you literally put Bud Black for manager of the year and not reward the players that he coached to help get them to the postseason for the first time in 10 years? First time
I feel like he rode the coattails of Nolan Arenado and Charlie Blackmon to a manager of the year award, but then they didn't get recognized. Like, how is that? That's not fair to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly don't get it.
You want to dive more into that?
We're frustrated, Cam.
I know.
I'm very
with you.
frustrated.
It's a tough topic. It really is.
Like, I had to, last night when I heard the news, I had to go in and teach the circuit class. I didn't want to teach the circuit class. I want to talk about how the Rockies get screwed.
Well, Brooks, you're also going to...
My day at work today was spent arguing the MVP discussion as well.
Well, I don't really... I was going to say, I don't have a lot of sports fans at work, so I have to basically teach them, which is fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's okay. More fans. That's great.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, CJ, thank you very much, man, for your time and talking about the Colorado Rockies, the MVP awards, most importantly, the MVP awards. And I didn't check. Obviously, my phone gets blown up for Twitter notifications because I stalk CJ and Brooks on Twitter. But I didn't see, because the Gold Gloves were being announced, and by all indications, Nolan Arenado should win his 5th straight, which...
Yes, he did.
He did?
Yep. Nolan Arenado won his 5th, and DJ won his 2nd.
Did Gerardo?
Gerardo lost. He got 2nd.
There you go. CJ's favorite player at second base won a Gold Glove, and that is DJ LeMahieu, Mr. Ground Balls Do Not Suck.
I don't even want to talk about DJ. Literally my least favorite player in the world.
No, you have a second worst favorite.
One second before I go, just got to say some words about Doc Holliday real quick.
Oh, yes.
Big figure in Colorado sports. If you didn't know, he went to a high school in Denver, and then he obviously went on to be a future Hall of Famer. And I actually go to the same church as him, and I really looked up to him when I was growing up. There's a lot of people from my church that are from Colorado that have played on the big stage, and he was somebody I always looked up to, and who I always watched on TV and tried to go to his games, and what a terrible ending for him and his family, and just prayers with him and his wife. Prayers for him and his wife and his 2 sons. That's something I couldn't even imagine going through. So, personally.
It's interesting. It's that stuff that really makes me wonder, because I don't think people, we think of John Elway, that played in Denver. We think of, let's see, we think of a bunch of other Colorado athletes, that certainly are from here, but there may not have been, and certainly there are their fair share of tremendous baseball players, that probably come out of here. Mark Melanson's a great pitcher, but as far as potentially just sports wide, and who knows what the future is in store for Christian McCaffrey, but as far as potentially Colorado sports athletes, I'm going to be honest, I think Roy Halladay, I don't think a lot of people truly understood and just how good he really was. And as far as him being potentially the best Colorado athlete, and then at some point be a Hall of Famer. He was a tremendous pitcher. He threw a no-hitter in a divisional series. The windup was quirky. I think he was a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. He was an ace for about 5 or 6 years. I think back to the year when he was going back and forth in the American League. I think it was Johan Santana. I think that sounds right. When he and Johan Santana were going at it for the AL Cy Young, I believe when Johan Santana was a big deal with was it the Minnesota Twins?
Yep.
But yeah, I think people really forget just how terrific of a pitcher and a ball player Roy Halladay is, but he was an even better person too.
Yeah. From all accounts that I've heard from anybody, I've been following people on Twitter and Instagram, seeing what they, players who played with him, what they've had to post. Chase Utley posted something really great about him. Some other players did too. It sounds like he was just a tremendous person. And I don't think there's any substitute for that. You can be the greatest baseball player in the world, but it means more to be a great person and to use that platform to do great things. And I think that's what he did.
Absolutely. People have a tendency to misinterpret the fact that we do have a platform. And it's sometimes the image that people see in us, and they can choose to bring you down or motivate you. I had to deal with that a few days ago. But yeah, it's up to how much it fuels you as a platform and what you want to use it for. And Roy Halladay, Doc Holliday, he was one of the few people that certainly respected the game of baseball. Absolutely. Well, hey, any final thoughts, CJ, before we send you off?
That's the man. I gotta go hang out with my wife for her birthday.
Tell her happy birthday from both Brooks and I.
All right, I will do that.
All right. Hey. Take care, guys. Or take care, CJ.
Yeah, have a good one.
That was CJ Cranock in a little bit of an extended version, obviously, of the fantasy football focus segment with Brooks, obviously, a big part of that. Brooks, what were some of your takeaways? Obviously, you had a lot to say in the fantasy football focus segment. I'm kidding, but you had a lot to discuss about. But you know CJ personally. You were roommates with him at Garden City Community College. Enlighten people just as far as the guy and who CJ is.
Well, CJ is one of the most interesting dudes I've ever known. It's kind of funny. I really didn't know I would have a really good relationship with him until I got to Garden. We kind of knew about each other in high school since we played each other. He played at Pine Creek High School. I played at Chaparral. So we knew of each other. We just never really met each other before. But, yeah, we first met when I got to Garden City. And we kind of just happened. I mean, we just became best buds that spring of 2014. And then for 2 years, we were roommates in the same old same little apartment that we had called the Fortress, like we used to call it. But I mean, CJ is a great dude, and he's my best friend. I was his best man at his wedding, and he'll be the best man at mine whenever that happens. I don't want to talk about that.
You're teasing too much information.
Huh?
I said you're teasing too much information. You're already leaking who's your best man.
Oh, that's he already knows.
I know.
He's known together. But he's a great dude. He knows his stuff. Him and his wife now. It's crazy. He's such a dad now. Sometimes I get a little sad because I miss the single CJ, but that's okay.
Well, and it's still there. I mean, it's you think about kind of the crazy, he's the guy that's really just not gonna, swear a whole lot. Typically, guys when end of the game on Sunday.
One word, probably just terrible.
Yeah.
Off pretty well against San Diego, and I was like, okay, this team's got a lot of potential. I saw the offense that had a lot of potential. They scored 24 points in 3 quarters. I was like, shoot, they could put this game away, but they kind of let San Diego back in, and then the block field goal, or whatever it was. And then against the Cowboys, just absolutely dismantled the Cowboys and their run game. Like, that was stupid. How they did so well, and then they just collapsed. And it was, I've honestly never seen that. It's like I've never seen a team so unprepared.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem, and it's a huge problem because it falls on the coaching staff. It falls on the inability to put forth a team that wants to win on Sunday. And does it go to leadership?
Absolutely.
It does, but it's just disappointing because they have enough leaders on the team.
Oh yeah,
at least on
more defense still there.
And they laid an egg. It was potentially one of the worst defensive performances, certainly that I can remember. And
it's been a long time.
I mean, I would say I would have to go back and look at their game logs, but this was potentially the first game where the Broncos had an opponent put a 50 burger on them.
I think I saw something. It was the last time was like 2010 against the Raiders when they were bad.
Yeah. It's just it's very frustrating. They're not generating any sort of momentum, whatsoever. And the ability for them to just, for some reason, not generate any rushing attack, not generate any sort of production from a third wide receiver. It's just incredibly frustrating.
It is. It's very frustrating.
And the quarterback has been inept. It's been struggling. They're either turning the ball over. And look, did Brock Osweiler say all the right things this last week? Absolutely, he did. Ball security is job security. And unfortunately, for Brock Osweiler, he's going to end up having it be relied upon for one more week. But really, it might just end up being one more week because all indications are they're going to go to Trevor Siemian or Paxton Lynch. And that's just a sign of where things are right now as far as a potential team that's going to have rotating quarterbacks and rotating horrendous quarterback play.
Yep. No question.
And go ahead.
They need to bring a big deal quarterback-wise.
Huh?
They need to bring a new guy in quarterback-wise, like an Andrew Luck, Drew Brees, kind of like a veteran guy to help lead the way. I mean, yeah, it's it's like, why not we just get a guy who can be a franchise for a long time, but at the same time, it's just like, why if we can, or if the Broncos can get a veteran guy, why not?
Yeah. And the Andrew Luck thing is probably a little unrealistic, but certainly, it's very, very bad right now. The situation's horrible between Andrew Luck and Jim Irsay. The comments that Jim Irsay has made publicly about Andrew Luck kind of throws him under the bus, and it's a situation that is going to be all.
That's what I said then.
Really though, Paxton Lynch just yet, absolutely, but that is a horrible, horrible look and comment by Vance Joseph. Nonetheless, to say that he is not mentally and physically ready to play. But, I mean, again, if you ask me, I don't think that the Broncos quarterback that's coming into this coming season, or next season, I should say, is not on the roster. Veteran quarterback, draft quarterback. They'll add either or both in the offseason. It's just, that's where we've come.
Yep.
But overall, though, I have to be impressed that they are still 3-5. But the point is that they have to find an identity on the team. They 100% have to find an identity. And is that an offensive identity? Is that a team that is going to pass the ball 50, 40 times? I don't know. They should be running the ball consistently, but they're not, because they go back as far as, being a rookie head coach, looking at it like, oh, you know what? We're being down by 2 scores, so therefore, you know what? We are going to throw the ball and see if we can. Look, I realize the logic there because of the fact that you're down 2 scores, so you want to try and get back in it as quick as possible by throwing the football. I get that. I get that logic, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the article that I wrote, I don't know if you had the chance to read it, and it was the day before actually it was the day of the Broncos-Giants game. They broke it. And the problem is that not only that, but the Giants gave them a blueprint, gave other teams a blueprint on how to beat the Broncos. And it was exposing a tight end. The Denver Broncos cannot cover a tight end for the life of them. That's the one weakness right now on that Denver Broncos defense, is that Brandon Marshall, Zaire Anderson, it does not appear that they can cover a linebacker.
You mean the tight end?
Oh, sorry, yeah, cover a tight end, yeah.
I agree. Is Gronk hurt or not?
Gronk?
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't been healthy the last 2-3 years, but I don't think. I think he's fine now. But why?
All right. Well, that's good.
Why? Oh, yeah, because the Broncos play the Patriots.
We got next week.
See, this is how bad I'm thinking, because it's Tuesday and I'm already, thinking about the loss this upcoming week.
Oh, I know.
But, obviously the Broncos, they're in a bad situation. They really are. But they are currently sitting, my buddy over at Predominantly Orange had a post out. I don't know if you follow him, Brooks, but you should. He's a really good guy, at Sayer Bettinger. He provides the music bed for my breaks. And I'm going to try and have him on next week. But he said that the Broncos, I think, hold the 7th or 8th pick overall in the NFL draft right now. So this would be the first pick inside the top 10 since 2010, I believe, when the Broncos drafted Von Miller.
You know what that means?
What does that mean?
It's Baker Mayfield time.
So you are a big fan of Baker Mayfield.
I mean, living in Oklahoma, I get to watch him play a lot, so I've enjoyed watching him play.
What do you like about him? Like, tell some of the people on here, as far as, because I'll probably be up a little bit late tonight because I have to get started on some of the quarterback prospects and prospects that are going to be potentially of target for the Broncos. So for Brooks, so that you know, because I haven't told you yet, but it has been confirmed that the Denver Broncos have scouted probably the most Josh Rosen, Josh Allen from Wyoming, and Lamar Jackson from Louisville.
Oh, okay.
Now, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but you're going to jump for joy. You know who Josh Allen is, correct?
Yes.
Quarterback, Wyoming, stud.
Yeah. Yes. Threw a pass to my buddy Drew Van Motten. Diving catch. He's a fullback.
Yeah.
Fifth year, senior.
There are rumors swirling that Josh Allen might stay in school and transfer.
Transfer.
Yes, transfer.
Will he be a graduate?
He'll be a graduate transfer.
Okay, so then he can play right away.
Yeah. And he would transfer to a team in the Big Ten.
He's going to transfer to Michigan.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
I am all for that.
Of course you are.
I am all for that. By the way, Brandon Peters from Michigan, going to be a stud. He's doing well for them right now. Their running backs are ridiculous. 395 yards between the two this past weekend versus Minnesota. Insane. Like, it was fun to watch.
And obviously the Nebraska Cornhuskers suck. But, you know, it is funny when you watch the Nebraska Cornhuskers and then you watch the Denver Broncos just how similar they are right now. That's just
I mean, Nebraska's young, but come on.
Yeah.
It's like,
I was gonna say they're getting really good quarterback play. It's just it's been very pathetic to watch as far as an offense. The offensive line is terrible.
Mike Riley even care?
I don't know, but it's entering a very frustrating time that you're asking the exact same situation, the exact same question for the last 5 years now. When Bo Pelini was ending his last 2 years, and then the 3 years of Mike Riley, it's getting a little bit pathetic that they are starting to ask the same question, and that is, who's the next head coach going to be? It's just it, and now overall, it's not a good sign, and it's not a good sign for a head coach overall when they fire their athletic director, then hire a new athletic director mid-season.
Right.
That is not a good. And Nebraska, for as much success as Nebraska volleyball is having, Nebraska's baseball is now going on the up and up because of a potentially, I can't believe I'm saying this, but a potentially soon to be big league manager at some point, and Darren Erstad. It's still a football-driven town, Nebraska.
Yes.
And if that football team is not performing, it is going to take the brunt of a lot of criticism. And because of that, you're going to see a lot of heat go on the football coach, and which in turn could result in a firing of an athletic director. And that's why Sean Eichhorst has left, and Bill Moose is now the athletic director over Nebraska now, who is the athletic director of Washington State. But yeah,
Right. Well,
Yeah.
there's no reason that makes sense. Nebraska should be competing for a national title every single year. Like, come on.
Yeah. And this is a Michigan guy saying that here, folks.
I mean, I've been to 2 game days in Nebraska, and it's unbelievable there.
Yeah. The experience, you went to a game, I think you went to a game in Iowa, or did you go to a game in Ann Arbor?
I went to the game in Iowa when they lost 13-12 on the last-second kick.
No, but I was just saying because, I mean, overall, the overall feeling, though, it's pretty good, though, for Michigan because of what Jim Harbaugh has instilled. And I think that the problem that Nebraska needs, do they need a physical-minded head coach again? They do.
Yes.
But at the same time, they need him to have a discipline about him that Bo Pelini didn't have. Bo Pelini had the fire, but he was playing with fire every single game on the sideline, you name it. He was playing with fire basically when the chips were down, he would throw the chips at the refs.
Right.
It just was a bad scenario for Pelini. And it was very smart for them to hire Mike Riley as far as a 180 to go in a different direction as far as personality. So that was a very smart decision. But overall, you look back on it, it just was not the best as far as results. You were 9-4. I think you had a losing record his first season, but they were losing last-second games his first season.
Yeah.
Then they turned it around and they were 9-3, 9-4, something like that. And then after that, coming into this year, they are teetering on, nearing a 6-win season again. So it's going to be a very interesting time, and the speculation will come in as far as Scott Frost. Is Scott Frost going to end up being the guy for the Cornhuskers as far as leading them there? Who knows? But, yeah, not a good situation whatsoever for the Cornhuskers. Any final thoughts?
Blackman and Arenado got snubbed. Thanks, MLB. Really shows you're buying.
It really does.
Broncos suck right now. They'll figure it out. I'm feeling they'll figure it out. Not this year, but next year.
Let's get Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins, Drew Brees, or Andrew Luck. That'd be good.
That is Brooks Benson, everybody, and you can follow him at...
One more.
Okay.
One more final thought. Michigan's going to upset Wisconsin at Wisconsin and beat Ohio State, and they're going to upset some polls in the good old top 4. They won't make the top 4 this year, but they'll finish 10-2 and beat Ohio State and Wisconsin in the last 2 games.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
I want to talk more about college football because college football in general doesn't get not a whole lot of love here. But I do want to talk about it a lot because of the simple fact that there's just a lot of excitement with college football season in general, and the teams, the camaraderie. I just want to talk about college football because right now, as far as if you ask me what I prefer maybe more right now, I prefer college football over the pros, and that's just me.
Oh, that's me too, dude.
But you can follow Brooks Benson. If you guys are listening to the broadcast, you guys can follow Brooks Benson at B_squared19. I call him BB19, because, he's addicted to Star Wars. I'm addicted to Star Wars. I went to go see Thor Ragnarok last night. The Star Wars trailer was playing before that. And so it was a dandy of a trailer, the Star Wars trailer. and we are peaking on nearly a month before Star Wars Episode 8 comes out. I'm stoked. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in to the Game of Progress Show. And when we come back on I will be broadcasting a show on Thursday, and I will be having a friend from Metro come on for the full show, and we'll be talking about the Avalanche trade of Duchesne, and we'll be talking about the Rockies, the MLB Awards, how he certainly feels about it, and then we'll be talking about how he feels about the Denver Broncos and what his feeling is as a Chicago Bears fan. So Chicago Bears fan perspective of what is the state of the Chicago Bears and what is the state of the Denver Broncos and maybe the NFL as a whole. So a lot to talk about for the rest of the week, but we will have CJ on every single Tuesday, the Fantasy Football Focus segment, and his ex-roommate will stop by every now and then and give his thoughts potentially on the baseball season or just potentially some sports nuggets along the way. So thank you guys very much. And Brooks, man, as always, thank you very much for tuning in and calling in and annoying CJ for the first 2 minutes.
Oh, of course. It was a pleasure, Cameron, as usual. Thank you again.
Absolutely. You guys have a great rest of your night. And if you guys follow me on Twitter, I will be posting all sorts of updates as far as draft prospects and you name it. So thank you very much, and you guys have a very blessed rest of your day.